Xenoblade Chronicles came out over a decade ago. Now there's 3 games, and they're all real long. So here's the story of the first game, Xenoblade Chronicles. Long ago in the year 20XX, so maybe the future? Imagine Earth, but there's a united world government. They find a mysterious artifact called the Conduit that can connect to different dimensions and warp reality. They put it up in space and make a big supercomputer of 3 AIs to manage it. One day, a bunch of rebels unhappy with the government attack the space station, demanding the Conduit. During the battle, a researcher named Klaus uses the Conduit to create a new universe. His co-worker Gallia tries to stop him but is unsuccessful, so she and half of Klaus are sent into the world of Xenoblade Chronicles 1. In this new world, everybody lives on 2 large titans, the Bionis and the Mechanis. When the world was created, Klaus became the spirit of the Bionis, known as Zanza, and Gallia became the spirit of the Mechanis, known as Maineth. One of the AIs for the supercomputer, Ontos, also came into the world with them. And while Zanza and Maineth have godly powers, Ontos has extra god powers, but he acts more as an observer. He creates the Monado, a sword that can control all of the ether in the world, and Zanza ends up with one. All of the organic life on the Bionis is made up of ether, and using that ether, Zanza created a bunch of different species, like the Homs, which are basically humans, giants, and whatever Napan are. Whenever a creature dies, the ether returns to the Bionis, and they use it to make new life. A cycle. Zanza also created the Telethia, a race that could absorb ether to feed him. The Telethia eventually became a race known as the Entia, bird people, but they maintained a gene that could turn them back into Telethia if they were exposed to enough ether. On the Mechanis, Maineth made robots called Machina. They're like robots, but with people faces. Maineth believed that her and Zanza's creation should be free to live and explore into the unknown. They lived in peace for a while, but Zanza eventually realized that if all life ever left him, he wouldn't be able to eat any more ether. So he decided to wipe out everything on the Mechanis and the Bionis. The Monado, housing Zanza's soul, eventually is found by a giant named Arglis. Zanza possesses him and launches an attack on the Mechanis using the Bionis and the Telethia. After fighting for some time, Zanza and Maineth get a bit sleepy, so they take a nap and the Titans stop moving. The Entia take Arglis' possessed body and seal it away, and they seal the Monado away in a tower. Somehow before all this happens, Zanza recruits 3 disciples, a giant named Dixon, an Entia named Larithia, and the supercomputer Ontos, who's now going by Alvis. They work behind the scenes to eventually bring him back. Most of the life on the Mechanis is wiped out, but a Machina survivor Egil vows revenge on the Bionis and starts to rebuild the Mechanis and makes an army of drones called the Mechons over the next few centuries. Eventually, a group of Hom researchers discover the Monado. When they do, it drains their life force and reawakens Zanza's soul. He possesses the body of a nearby child, Shulk, the main character of the game. The giant Dixon, posing as a Homs, finds the sword and Shulk and brings him back to Colony 9. 13 years later, Egil launches his attack and wipes out most of the Hom life on all the colonies except 6 and 9. Nice. Dunban, the leader of the Homs resistance, fights using the Monado, which is the only weapon that works on the Mechon. Dixon and this guy Mumkar are also there. Dunbar and Dixon survive the battle, and supposedly Mumkar is eaten by Mechon. Supposedly. After getting slapped around by the Monado, Egil thinks that he can get around their weakness by using Homs to pilot their Mechon, since the Monado only works on robots. So he starts kidnapping Homs, brainwashing them, and making them pilot Mechons. Fast forward a year later, Shulk is living his life in Colony 9 with his friends Ryan and Fiora, Dunban's sister. Shulk spends most of his time researching the Monado with Dixon. The Mechon attack again, and Shulk uses the Monado to fend them off, and it also gives him the ability to see into the future. However, during the attack, a Mechon with a face, metal face, kills Fiora, supposedly, but really they take her away to make her into a faced Mechon, giving Shulk and Ryan the motivation they need to leave Colony 9 to hunt down her killer. Shulk and Ryan rescue a child named Juju from some animals. He takes him to his sister Sharla. She lets them know that Colony 6 was also attacked by Mechon. Juju runs off and gets himself kidnapped by a faced Mechon, so the group heads into the mines to rescue him. They find Sharla's leader Otharon, and he lets Sharla know that her fiancé Godot has been missing. They confront the faced Mechon and are able to save Juju. Outside the mines, Metalface and a group of Mechons ambush the group. Dunban and Dixon show up, but they aren't much help. During the attack, Shulk has a vision of Zanza powering up the Monado and defeating Metalface. A Telethia attacks the Mechon and they bounce. Shulk tells the group about his vision and Dixon sends them up to the head of the Bionis where they'll meet the High Entia. In the meantime, back on the Mechanis, Fiora has become part robot, and Egil's sister Vinea puts Maineth's soul inside of her. The group eventually makes it into a forest and finds a passed out girl. Charlotte says she can wake her up with an ether crystal, so Shulk goes looking for one. He meets Alvis, who teaches him more about the Monado and then dips. Using the ether crystal, Charlotte wakes up the girl. She introduces herself as Melia. As a thank you for helping her, she agrees to help the group get to the Bionis' head. But first they stop in a nearby Nopon village. Melia reveals that she's been tasked with defeating a certain Telethia. Eventually she agrees to let the group help. The Nopon leader sends Riki with the group as a way to forgive his debts. They defeat the Telethia and make their way up to the Bionis' head. They end up in the High Entia capital. Ready for politics? Melia is actually the daughter of the current emperor and a Homs, so she's a half-blood Homs and half-blood Entia. She's next in line for succession, despite having a full-blooded older brother named Callian. But her older brother is totally down with it. His mother, less so she suggests a trial for Melia. Everyone agrees, but she plans to sabotage it with an assassin. Meanwhile, Shulk's group got arrested due to a prophecy about the Monado, but luckily Alvis returns, and as the seer for the Entia, he clears the group of suspicion. Shulk has a vision about Melia getting attacked during her trial, so the group busts in and saves the day. While visiting Melia later, Shulk has a vision about her dad getting killed by a Mechon, so the group makes their way to the Emperor, but he's gone off to Prison Island where Zanza is being held. They meet the giant Zanza. He's like, if you release me, I'll power up the Monado, and Shulk is like, bet. So they do, and then Metalface and another face Mechon show up and kill Zanza and the Emperor. During the fight, it's revealed that the new Mechon that showed up is actually piloted by Fiora, but she don't remember nobody, and then the Mechon bounce. While the group is climbing up the mountain, Maineth in Fiora's body decides that she needs to talk to Shulk. Mid-conversation, Metalface arrives and reveals himself to be Mumkar. They have a little fight, but it's stopped when Egil drops in and takes Maineth away. The group makes their way towards the Mechonis, where they have a final confrontation with Mumkar, and he gets impaled by some debris. Then they make their way to Egil and Maineth. Egil uses some sort of tech to disable the Monado, and Fiora begs Maineth to help Shulk, and she does. The fortress crumbles and the group falls down to the ocean below. Shulk wakes up and finds Fiora, who's weak but has her old personality back. The whole group eventually rendezvous and meets up with the Machina. They learn that not everybody on the Mechonis is out to get them, and a robot doctor fixes Fiora's body. They meet the Machina leader, who lets them know that they don't agree with his son Egil and to just go ahead and kill him. The group heads towards the Mechonis capital and are attacked by a jade-faced Mechon, piloted by Charlotte's fiancé Godot, but he don't remember nobody either, but Charlotte is able to bring him back to his senses. Shulk catches up to Egil, and Egil explains that he doesn't hate them, but if he kills all the life on the Bionis, then it can't reabsorb their ether, and Zanza won't ever reawaken. Shulk is like, wow, that's pretty fucked, and they fight. Egil heads into the core of the Mechonis, and tries to blow everybody else up, but Godot protects everybody from the explosion in exchange for his life. The group reaches Egil in the core as the Mechonis attacks the Bionis. They fight and win, and Shulk opts not to kill Egil. Moved by Shulk's words and actions, Egil appears to have a change of heart. But then Dixon shoots Shulk from behind, and the spirit of Zanza revives using a body that looks like Shulk's. Maineth and Zanza have a flashy battle, each using their own Monados. Maineth leaves Fiora's body and fades away. Zanza takes her Monado and dips. He gets back to the Bionis and turns most of the High Entia into Telethia. Using the Bionis, Zanza attacks the Mechonis. The party runs away. Egil tries to defend with the Mechonis, but both he and it are obliterated by the Bionis. The group is ambushed by Dixon and Telethia while they escape. Callian shows up to help, but Lorithia finally reveals that she's also bad and turns the remaining Entia into Telethia. Before he turns, Callian explains to Melia that she's the future of their people because she's half Homs and can't be turned into a Telethia. Callian makes a final attack on Dixon and Lorithia, and the group escapes. Shulk in coma mode has a motivational speech to himself in his head with Alvis, and he revives. Dixon attacks again, and Alvis reveals that he's also Zanza's disciple, and they dip. The group makes their way into the Bionis, and they travel up to Zanza. Along the way, they kill Lorithia and Dixon. The group encounters Zanza, and with the power of friendship, Shulk creates his own Monado and strikes down Zanza. Alvis reveals himself to be a space computer and lets Shulk know that since he killed a god, he gets to be a god. Shulk refuses to be a god and simply wishes for a world where everyone can live together and decide their own fate. So Alvis makes that happen, and Fiora gets her human body back. And that's Xenoblade Chronicles 1. But then some DLC came out. Sometime after the end of Xenoblade Chronicles, Melia and Shulk go to investigate the ruins of the Entia capital. But they get shot down by a laser, and they meet two of Riki's kids who tag along for the adventure. The group makes their way to a settlement where citizens of every race live. They meet Galgar, who's double racist. He blames the Machina for Egil's attack, and he thinks the half-Homs Entia are the future because they don't have the Telethia gene. In the capital, they see a rift shooting lasers and save an Entia child named Keelan. He's researching how to turn Telethia back into Entia. Tyrea, who at some point we learned is Melia's half-Hom sister and the assassin that attacked her during her Ascension ritual, lives with Keelan as his protector. The rift keeps expanding, and now the fog is affecting the local animals. While fending off attacks, Galgar tries to murk Keelan. A Telethia saves him, but his lab is set on fire. Melia runs inside and saves a single book. They make it back to the capital and fight the Fog King. They struggle until Telethia throw themselves into the rift and destabilize it. Melia gathers all of her power and blasts away the Fog King and the rift. The capital is rebuilt and Melia is officially crowned the Empress of the High Entia. And they all live happily ever after. Until Xenoblade Chronicles 3. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks a lot. One of my recent videos did pretty well, so I'm hoping to do more of these video game recaps. I initially was going to do all of Xenoblade Chronicles 1, 2, and 3 in one video, but that would have been a real long video, so it's going to come out in parts. So I hope you stay tuned for all of those. Bye!